If you guys see a video of a random guy in a TJ Maxx picking up a little person and that little person looks like me, just know it was me. And I had no idea what was going on. I was literally just there to look for suitcases because I'm moving in a month. I was going to take a picture of them so I could save it for later. And I'm staring into my phone about to take the picture and my phone starts going like, and I'm like, why am I floating? And then I hear giggling. I get put back on the ground and I turn around and I'm like, oh, it must be some friends that haven't seen me in a while trying to prank me. Tell me why I see two men that I've never seen in my life, and the one's filming. I go, excuse me? And he said, it's all good, man. It's all good, man. It's all good. No, it's not. Mind you, he looks like he just walked out of How to Train Your Dragon and not in a good way. I'm trying to be nice. But anyways, I'm like, why would you do that? And he was like, oh, I was trying to see if we could put you on my shoulders. It's all good, man. Are people okay? Genuinely, something shifted after the pandemic started because who just tries to pick up a person with dwarfism that they don't know?
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Aubrey Smalls, and today we're going to be talking about something that I personally find very fascinating, which is social media's relationship with the dwarfism community. Because up until this point, we really haven't seen that many creators with dwarfism, but we have seen a lot of influencers and YouTubers and celebrities using little people in their music videos or their videos and content as a joke, and I think that's really fascinating, and I wanted to discuss how that specifically affects little people living their everyday lives in the real world who aren't even online in the first place. I posted this video on TikTok the other day and it went viral, and it was talking about an experience where these two people came up to me in a TJ Maxx and decided to try to put me on their shoulders for a video that they were filming. I don't know why anybody would want to do that, but the top comment that I keep getting is, why would someone want to pick up a little person in the first place? In my opinion, I think it's because of how social media, especially apps like TikTok and YouTube, have allowed creators and allowed content that essentially dehumanize, degrade, and demean the dwarfism community. So I have a few examples of what I mean, and I wanted to discuss them with you, but before we dive in, make sure you grab your beverage. I have iced coffee, even though it's 7 o'clock at night, and I have water, because I've had 3 cups of coffee today, and not a single glass of water. Make sure you like and subscribe and turn on the bell notifications so you can get all of these videos to your inbox directly the moment I post them. But without further ado, I figured we would start earlier on in the social media landscape with David Dobrik. I know he's having his big comeback right now and he has abs, and to me it looks like AI, and I'm not even trying to be shady, but it just looks like he's dodging accountability for almost killing his friend. But I have grown up online. I was around in the earliest days of YouTube, so I feel like I've really gotten the luxury of seeing the full evolution of specifically this topic, but influencers in general. So I wanted to talk a little bit first about David Dobrik and his use of people with dwarfism in his content, because even though he didn't technically start this trend of having little people be gags in a video, this is something that's happened for a long time, but I think he definitely is a prominent example of little people being used as objects or props meant for amusement and meant for a quick laugh in a video. And I wanted to show you guys some clips and talk about why I think specifically this type of content from David was particularly harmful, and the implications that this type of content, especially to young viewers, this is most likely the first time that they even saw a little person in general. There's hundreds of thousands of little people living in the world right now, and they've been existing since the beginning of humanity, but most people on their day-to-day basis might not even meet a little person, but we still see them on screen, or in this case, YouTube. So I wanted to show some examples. Let's roll the clips.
If I attach Velcro to you, can I throw you at a dartboard?
It's like you dipped your head into a bunch of melted airheads. Finally, I can make fun of something that you weren't born with.
I make fun of you for your disability all the time. Now you dye your hair, I make fun of you for that. People are like, yo, you shouldn't be so mean. God, I don't know why this is so adorable.
Why have we never thought of this before? Come on in, tiny little helper of Santa Claus.
There he is.
This is Santa's helper.
I did not want to be here.
And I think you deserve something nice.
Tom and I are happy for you.
Happy too.
We both got this for you. We kind of pitched in.
All right, come out. Nick, look, I got you a girlfriend.
Another dwarf? You know the amount of dwarf jokes I endured over these past couple years in his presence? Do you really want to take on that role? He will strip you down. He will make you feel like you're nothing but a grain of sand.
Nick, we have a surprise for you.
Yes, Nick. Good.
Perfect, yes. Tie him down, perfect. Go ahead. Yes. There we go, Nick, what's up? Yeah, stab him. Yes. Stop. Let him have it. Guys, take him out to the street. Let's go. Go. Yeah.
Not everything has to do with dwarves. Like, I just want you to look at me like a normal person.
So this is one of the most egregious cases of people with dwarfism being used as objects. This video featured a creator named Big Nick, who has his own plethora of issues that I am well aware of. He was essentially a character in David Dobrik's content, because his content is a lot of just skits featuring different types of people to all play a character and a role in these videos. They're supposed to be very planned and scripted, and everyone's playing their part, right? And I mean, it's not just little people. He's used people like Trisha Paytas as a character. Like, he has his little boy group as characters. They're all just characters, right? And one character that he thought would be interesting was a little person. And there are so many examples of content that he filmed that was just him and these other characters in these skits, making fun of a little person, making fun of Big Nick's height. I mean, his name is Big Nick, a joke on the fact that he's a little person. I just think the whole thing is a little bit juvenile, but again, his content was geared towards children, and in some ways is definitely still geared towards children. So these are very base level jokes that he's making. It's not to say that you can't make jokes about little people. It's not to say that we can't have humorous, moments around the dwarfism community. But if you're just attacking someone's physical attributes, and that being that they have a disability, you're not funny. It's not a joke. It's just nasty. I forget who said it, but one little person once said that, I sound like I'm recounting an elder little person from a long time ago. But they basically said that dwarfism is one of the last acceptable disabilities to publicly make fun of, and I have to kind of agree. I feel like most other disability types, you would be publicly mocked, you'd be publicly scorned if you were to make fun of a person's disability as content, right? If you saw someone with autism and you were making fun of the way they walked or talked or moved or navigated the world, and all of the jokes you were making surrounding this person were based on these attributes related to their autism, we would call them what? A loser! If someone was missing a limb and all of the jokes that you were making about this person in your content was just mocking the fact that they couldn't use that part of their body, or making fun and demeaning them because of that, we would call you what? Loser! Like, think of the girl who plays baby Nessa Rose, my Shayla. If anybody were to make fun of her just because the fact that she used a wheelchair, what would we call that person? A loser! But when it comes to dwarfism, the jokes roll off of people's tongues, and people don't even, blink twice. It's just, a norm, right? Oh, I bet you can't read this. How's the weather down there? These jokes have existed and been recycled for so long. So David Dobrik's jokes specifically don't, I'm not like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he would say something like that. Of course he would say something like that. But what it did is it normalized this type of language around little people, and this type of, oh, if I see a little person, gotta make fun of them, for millions and millions of young people. An entire generation that is now in their early 20s, presumably, if not a little bit older, grew up with that type of content being normal. Like, the amount of times that David Dobrik hired little people to come and just be gags in his video, I just cannot, I know I'm a little person, so it sounds wild for me to say this, but I just cannot imagine collecting groups of people who are disabled and creating little skits and being like, oh my gosh, it's gonna be so funny when we have a bunch of little people chasing after me for a video.
Avengers? Looks like Thanos snapped and got rid of half of you. Got a short fuse.
That's it.
Genuinely seek help. And I mean, again, not to be all history nerd on you, but there was something called court dwarfs, which I have discussed before at length. If you check out my video called The History of Little People, that's a more serious video though. But essentially what court dwarfs were a long time ago, rich people, so that meant kings, queens, leaders in societies, from ancient civilization to the Middle Ages to the Renaissance period, so many periods of history. They would collect people with dwarfism to not be their jesters, not be their servants, but to literally be their personal pet dwarfs. They would rename them, they would dress them up in silly costumes, they would even build miniature doll houses for them to be in, and then they would invite their friends over to laugh at the little people in these miniature doll houses, look at my tiny little minion. And I just feel those vibes come off so strongly from this type of content, where it's I have power and money, and I can just have little people in these videos do whatever I want because I have power and money, and it's sad, but a lot of little people will do lots of things to be close in proximity to celebrity culture. I mean, a lot of people would, but specifically for little people in Hollywood who have no other opportunities, getting a call from a powerful, influential person on YouTube, they're probably going to take the job, right? But there's just something so sinister, specifically about the running them over thing, that I'm just where in your brain do you find these things? Okay, today's video, I'm going to pretend to run over a dwarf. Hello? And David Dobrik, it didn't stop at David Dobrik too. He inspired so many people after him to feature little people. Danny Duncan.
What about me? Let's start how we met. How?
So basically, I'm a young boy, grew up watching Robin Big. Basically, the premise of the show, if you don't know, he's a white skateboarder, and he gets this giant, big black security guard. His name is Big Black. So there's this little duo, like small white guy, big black guy. So I obsessed over the show as a kid. So I wanted to do the same thing. Like, you know, I was like, oh, I'm getting famous. I want a TV show one day. So I was like, what if I did that idea? Because it was like one of the best shows. So I was like, it should be me and a black little person.
One of the Paul brothers, Logan or Kyle was his name? Jake? One of them. You know, I'll throw some clips up, but it was very common for a while for these male YouTubers who were already known for being very chaotic to feature little people in a joking way. And I know some of you guys are like, those were their friends. Those were the... I don't know. I wouldn't have my friend who's disabled only be made the butt of my jokes. Like, it would be weird to look at your friend who has a disability and only talk about the fact that they're disabled and only highlight the fact that they're disabled and then edit it and publish it in front of millions of people online. That is weird. So as the creator landscape rose and influencers started to become a viable way of making a living and a popular form of media and entertainment, I think that this normalization of this type of humor around little people instead of uplifting creators who had dwarfism, the only time that we were seeing them on our screens was in these contexts, I think really did a lot of damage. But not only that, set a precedent and a norm on social media in general, which would later go on to impact future content, which we will talk about now. So over the years, there's been lots of videos of things like people jumping over little people that have gone viral and become, I wouldn't call them trends, but I mean, I guess they kind of are. Things that you know will garner views and no repercussions online. And I just think it's very strange that it's become so normal. But again, because of some of these popular creators doing the same thing for years and garnering millions of views and becoming millionaires, it doesn't surprise me that these trends exist. But still, it's very odd to me. And I think the worst part is that these earlier examples of like David Dobrik, etc., those were consensual interactions, right? The little person agreed to be in those videos. Do I think that's good? No, but those were consensual. The problem is that as we continue on, we're seeing these jokes and stuff affect people who aren't even in the influencer space, who are literally just trying to live their normal lives. And that's why I have an issue. I cannot control what another little person does consensually. Can I call it stupid? I can. It's a free country. Can I judge them? I do. And will. But at the same time, I don't really care. You know? They're sellouts. But filming yourself jumping over a little person who literally has no idea who you are and suddenly seeing your crotch above their head, disrespectful. So I think over the years, again, there's just been like this normalization of content like this that I think is just like, it's gotten out of control. But I think this type of content has just gotten out of control with people using little people as their set pieces or props. I mean, from talk show hosts to radio show hosts, there's been lots of people who have had little people on for a bit, like Howard Stern, like Chelsea Handler. Some of them are more respectful than others, but it's the fact that they're hiring these people and creating content solely off the fact that it's a dwarf, that it's a little person. It's not just a regular person on their staff, it's specifically has to be a little person. The jokes, the whole bit wouldn't work if the person wasn't a little person, and that is not okay. The only time that you're including people with disabilities in your content should not be to highlight the fact that they're disabled, as a joke. I have found my zen. So this normalization of talking about little people as if they're objects or portraying them as such in social media content leads to things like this next video that we're going to talk about. That went viral in 2023 on TikTok, and I'm not going to show you the full video, but we'll talk about it in a second.
If you're easily offended, keep scrolling. Please don't watch this video. I'm not joking. This is not nice. My partner and I had responded to a call for someone who passed away. When we got there, the entire family was standing out in the yard. They were grieving, as you would expect them to. When we got inside, we found the deceased person in the back bedroom, and this person was 3 foot tall. Not a child, but a dwarf. And everyone at our service had always said, you know what? You never find a deceased dwarf. We really think they're immortal. They never get sick. They never call 911. We've never seen one. It's kind of weird. I've never ran into a dwarf in 12 years of doing this job until this day. Anyway, we were very professional. We went and told the family we're sorry. They're deceased. There's nothing that we can do. These are the next steps we're going to follow. We're going to wait for the coroner to show up. I'm in the passenger seat where no one can see me, my partner's in the driver's seat, and in full view of the family. And of course, they're all staring towards us because someone just passed away, they dialed 911. They're all looking at us, making eye contact with my partner. Let me preface this next part by saying that yes, I am aware that I'm an asshole, but it was really, really funny. Knowing full well that we had to keep a straight face, and knowing full well that the patient's family could see him, I played this song on my phone while staring at him like this.
So essentially, this paramedic was called to a house where a person with dwarfism had passed away, and he was with his partner, the paramedic, and they both loaded up the body into the back of the ambulance. And before they left, while they were still within view of the family couldn't hear them, but they could still see the family from inside the ambulance. He thought it would be funny to play a song from The Wizard of Oz, specifically that was about the Munchkin characters. It's just in poor taste, I think, to post stuff like this publicly online to people who are not in the profession, who don't experience the same things you do, who don't need to cope in the ways that you do, because they don't have to see, deceased people all the time. I understand in some people who are saying, oh, it's dark humor because, EMTs see a lot. That's irrelevant to the conversation. Not everything has to go online. And I think people need to remember again that we are only seeing a snippet of your life. So all of the other context doesn't essentially matter. It matters what you put in these videos that go out to millions of people, which this video did, and inspired tens of thousands of comments to mock the dwarfism community and mock the idea of there being a person who had passed away and playing a song associated with the dwarfism community, and a song that is negative. It's not like it's not like you're playing "We Can't Stop" by Miley Cyrus and everyone's booty twerking. Not a great look, but I think it's so normal that no one bats an eye, because this type of humor around little people is so normal. And I think this just negatively impacts people's perceptions on a community that they might not come in contact with in the first place. The only time that they're coming in contact with people from this community is through demeaning, dehumanizing jokes from people who aren't even little people to begin with. Do you know what I'm saying? Do you see how that would be messed up if you've never met a group of people before and the only context that you had about them were jokes that were stereotypes and dehumanizing? And all of these jokes were based around the fact that these people were objects and different than you, so that was okay to highlight that. I can tell you, it doesn't do good things for people's brains. But when little people came out to talk about why videos like this were harmful for people with dwarfism, the amount of people from this creator's fan base that drove little people off the platform for saying that they felt uncomfortable with this joke. If you're willing to joke about a marginalized community, you have to also be willing to face criticism from that same group. I just don't understand this idea that we're so sensitive when it comes to being criticized for jokes that we make. Like, that's weird to me. Everyone always wants to say, oh, it's a joke, it's a joke. I think if you're willing to make a joke and put it out in front of millions of people, then you also need to be prepared for people to not find that joke funny. I think it's very weird when people act like you have to find everything they say funny. It's very strange to me. Very strange. Like, sorry, I think you're not funny. Next caller. So this next video I've covered before in this channel, but to summarize, this girl was in an airport and saw a little person and asked if they wanted to ride on their suitcase so she could help them get to their gate, because she assumed that this little person, since they were running and walking fast, that they were needing help.
I had a really bad public interaction with the little person today, and I just feel like I need to get on here and tell you guys before they do, because I'm not getting canceled for this shit. I was at the airport, walking to the terminals. It's a long ass walk to the terminals, okay? I see a little person. They look like they're in a hurry. They look like they're trying to walk as fast as they possibly can, and they're struggling, falling behind the rest of the people. And I looked at them and I thought, damn, if I were them, I would really want to ride on someone's suitcase. And I basically went up to them and I was like, hey, do you want to ride on my suitcase? I'll take you to your terminal. They got so offended and so mad at me. I was not expecting that reaction. Like, I thought maybe we could make a core memory together. Maybe we could have fun. Maybe we could be friends. Like, sorry you are allergic to fun. Like, I don't know what to say.
I think this really just goes to show the ways that people are comfortable talking about little people as if they're, again, objects for their own personal enjoyment or amusement. And I think that in this case, the wording she uses, the way she's phrasing this whole situation, like, how dare they not want to do this? I just, like, Can other little people explain if I was being harsh? And it just seems more like she's concerned about her feelings rather than what she actually said to a stranger that she doesn't know. And I find this a lot on the internet, that people refer to people with dwarfism as if they're objects or like a fantasy race. And I think that's why I'm so opposed to people calling little people dwarfs. I feel like sometimes people want to use that as if it's a pronoun. Like, oh yeah, you're a dwarf. I saw a dwarf do this. Dwarfism is a condition. A person with dwarfism. I have diastrophic dysplasia. The most common form is achondroplasia. There's pseudo-achondroplasia. There's different types of dwarfism, okay? Hundreds in fact. So dwarfism is the umbrella term we use. But here's the thing. You don't have to call out our disability. There's other ways to describe us. But there's other ways to describe us. Sorry, I just was tweaking there for a second. I think people feel like they have to call out our disability in order to refer to us. Like, there's no other thing you could mention? Anyways, what I was saying is, people forget that we're human beings, so the ways that they refer to us and the way that they talk about us and the expectations they have can often err on the side of stripping away their humanity from these interactions. They do and say things to little people that they would never say to another stranger if they didn't have dwarfism or disability in general. And this isn't exclusive to little people. I know lots of wheelchair users who say that people will come up to them and start pushing them in their wheelchair, whether that be to help them, whether that's to be move them out of their way. They just feel entitled to our bodies, to asking certain things. The amount of times I get asked, so are your private parts the same size as, ma'am, this is a Wendy's. I don't know who the heck you are. I digress. And this video has almost 2 million likes. I just covered this video a few days ago and only had like 1.5, 1.6, and it keeps growing. There's like 25,000 comments, and it's concerning the way that people talk about people with dwarfism on the internet. It just is really weird. It's really weird that there's so many little people who post content, who are creators, who are lifestyle comedians, whatnot. Their content never gets pushed by the algorithm. But videos like this, videos of people jumping over little people, videos of people picking up little people go so viral all the time. It's almost as if these algorithms favor jokes because they know it will help with engagement, because people will be like, that's crazy, oh my gosh, and actually uplifting creators who have dwarfism to begin with, who are just normal people. And I think that it doesn't help, for sure, that there's some little people who play into this, because sometimes for marginalized communities, playing into stereotypes is how they get their foot in the door. And we see that with all different minority types. And we have definitely had, obviously, these situations where these creators have used little people like props. Those were consensual interactions. These little people knew exactly what was happening. They knew how they were going to be portrayed. And in some cases, like Big Nick, they've had, in retrospect, not liked these experiences and shown how harmful it was. Again, Big Nick, super problematic, but he has talked about how people who were fans of the content that David was putting out with him would come up to him in the streets and say demeaning and dehumanizing things to him, and would treat him like an object, like he wasn't even a person, because of the way it was being portrayed on screen. People really do internalize the content that they view, whether that be in movies or on social media. And I think sometimes we forget of how big of an impact what we consume can have on our daily lives and the way we view the world, which is why social media is both powerful and also so dangerous. Like, so dangerous for some people. So circling back to the video that I originally posted, where two people come up to me in a TJ Maxx and film themselves trying to pick me up without my consent, it doesn't surprise me that they thought that was an acceptable thing to do. It doesn't surprise me that they thought it was not, out of the norm, and thought that I would be, oh yeah, you're filming every video? I totally understand. They thought that was normal because of how social media for the past decade has elevated, uplifted, and encouraged people who have done the same exact thing. Like, quite literally the same exact thing. There's also this really weird trend on TikTok where it's like making up a story time about, I saw a child in the mall and they looked lost, so I picked them up to help them find their parents, and they started kicking and screaming, and I looked down and realized it was a little person. The amount of times I've seen videos that go viral with this concept of picking up a child in public that you do not know, and then magically realizing it was a little person later on, and putting them down, those aren't real, y'all. Those don't happen. It's not a real thing. The amount of times that I open up my comment section and I see a comment that's like, I accidentally picked up a little person because I thought I was a child. It's just like a joke that people think is funny, so they like pretend like it really happened, and they either comment it on little people's videos, or they make a video out of it, or make it in a meme. It's not real. I think people really are dumb enough sometimes to pretend like we're all just gonna believe that because we're the same height as some children, that there's no other distinguishable factors to separate us from a child. Do these hips, oh, you can't see, but my hips, I don't look like a child, okay? I don't want to convince you that I'm not a child. Oh my gosh. And also, who's just picking up random children and then not even looking at them long enough to see if they're a child? That's just like, again, not happening. But again, why would someone find this joke funny? Because they've seen similar content that has encouraged and inspired them to laugh at the expense of a little person and to reduce us to a prop. You know? They hit in their brain, the image of picking up a little person is funny to them. So creating this joke that's based off of that idea is super normal to them. They see no problem with it. Social media is based off of engagement, so these videos are always going to be pushed by the algorithm, but I think we just need to start bringing back shame. The more people we convince to shame people for posting stuff like this, we'll just move on. People will move on. They're just doing this for attention. And once they realize that they can't get attention from dehumanizing and using little people as objects, they will move on. Hopefully not another minority group, but you know, they'll move on. But people with dwarfism in real life are disproportionately being affected by this sort of humor. I mean, people picking us up does pose real risks. I know it might not seem like the end of the world, but there have been little people who have been permanently injured, whether that be paralyzation. I mean, there's little people who have literally died because we don't weigh less necessarily because we're a little person. Like, I'm 3 feet 10 inches tall, but still weigh over 100 pounds. So people who are just trying to nonchalantly pick us up sometimes fall on top of us because they don't realize that we are actually heavy. We're not light as a feather, birds of a feather by Billie Eilish. We weigh stuff, you know? And I mean, I shouldn't have to convince you that there's a safety risk to convince you that picking up strangers that you don't know without their consent is messed up and disturbed and evil and vile and horrible. And I feel like that's, you know, I feel that's common knowledge. I'm curious to know what you guys think either way, because I do think this is a fascinating conversation. And I think, again, even if you've never met a little person before, you've probably seen content like this. So please let me know your thoughts on this. As always, in the comments down below, I will be stalking you all and possibly judging your response. Just kidding. I'm kidding. Please. But until next time, again, make sure you like and subscribe to support. It really helps me out. But yeah, that's all I have for today. I'm Aubrey Smalls. I love ya. Keep going. Wilder.